Do you believe in a higher power? I don't know about you. I kind of like the idea that there's a larger being out there somewhere watching out for all of us. I don't know if you have that kind of belief. Maybe you're an atheist. I don't know what religion you are, but I do feel that like most people in the world tend to believe that there's some kind of higher power out there that is hopefully answering prayers, hopefully looking out for us, and just being something that we all aspire to, especially in this day and age where we have a president that's kind of weaponizing religion to hurt people in this country, which makes me very sad. But that's another story, and this is not a political channel. I don't want to get into that. Forget I said that, okay? So for now, I'm just thinking today I wanted to react to something a little bit different. Today is Travel Tuesday. So I am reacting to something in the travel industry, and normally it would be travel advice and stuff like that. But this popped up in my feed like day before yesterday, and I went, ooh, I must react to that like immediately because I love the idea that a voice saved lives. And that's what the title of this one is today. It's called Pilot Takes Off 3 minutes early after hearing a voice and saves 148 passengers. Now, as a flight attendant, I really like that idea that there was a higher power looking out for those people that day. Let's see if the voice was a higher power or just an AT&C controller, right? So here we go.
September 28, 2018. Palu Airport, Indonesia. Flight 6231 sits on the runway, engines humming, ready for departure. Captain Ricosetta Mafella checks his instruments one final time. Everything looks normal. The weather is clear. His 148 passengers are settled in their seats. But something feels different. Something he can't quite explain. A voice in his head keeps telling him the same thing over and over. Get out now. This voice ends up saving all 148 passengers on board. Most pilots would ignore that feeling. They'd stick to the schedule, follow protocol, wait for the exact departure time. But Captain Mafella couldn't shake the urgency building inside him. He turned to his crew and said something that would save every life on that plane. We need to leave, right now, 3 minutes early. Against every instinct to follow procedure, he requested immediate takeoff clearance. In the control tower, 21-year-old Anthonius Gunawan Agung received the unusual request. Early departures weren't common, but something in the pilot's voice made him respond without hesitation. Batik 6321, clear for takeoff. The Boeing A320 began its roll down runway 33. Passengers looked out their windows at the Indonesian landscape below, completely unaware that their lives hung in the balance. As the wheels lifted off the ground, Captain Mafella felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. They were airborne. They were safe. Or so he thought, because what happened next would reveal just how close to disaster they had come. At exactly 6:05 p.m., just 3 minutes after Flight 6231 left the ground, the earth beneath Palu Airport began to shake. Not the gentle tremor of a minor quake, but the violent, devastating force of a 7.5 magnitude earthquake. The runway that had just carried them to safety started cracking apart like broken glass.
Wow.
The control tower, where Agung had cleared them for takeoff, began swaying back and forth like a tree in a hurricane. From his position in the cockpit, Captain Mafella watched in horror as the coastline below transformed into something unrecognizable. Massive waves were forming in perfect circles, radiating outward from the shore. I saw it was a wave moving in a circle with a huge radius, he would later recall. It was getting bigger and bigger, but I didn't know what it was. What he was witnessing from 1,500 feet above was the birth of a tsunami. The same tsunami that would soon devastate everything they had just left behind. He tried calling the control tower once, twice, 3 times. No response. The radio remained silent. At the time, he assumed Agung had evacuated or was dealing with the chaos below. He had no way of knowing the real reason for that silence. No way of knowing that the young air traffic controller who had cleared them for takeoff was fighting for his own life. Back on the ground, panic erupted throughout the airport. The 4-story control tower shook violently as the earthquake tore through the building. Ceiling tiles crashed down, windows shattered. The structure itself began to buckle and sway. Every controller in that tower had one thought: run. Get out before the building collapses. They raced toward the stairwells, desperate to escape the crumbling structure, all except one. Anthonius Gunawan Agung remained at his station. While his colleagues fled, he stayed behind, watching his radar screen. Flight 6231 was still climbing, still in his airspace, still his responsibility. His fellow controllers shouted for him to leave. "The building is collapsing," they yelled. "We have to go now." But Agung refused to abandon his post. "Wait," he told them. "Batik is still here." The young controller understood something his colleagues didn't. If he left his station before the plane was completely correct of his airspace, he might not be there to handle any emergency. If something went wrong during those critical first minutes of flight, 148 people would be in danger with no one to guide them to safety. So he stayed, as walls cracked around him, as the floor beneath his feet shifted and buckled, as his only escape route grew more dangerous by the second. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Flight 6231 disappeared from his radar screen. They were out of his airspace, out of immediate danger, safe. Only then did Agung turn away from his station and face the reality of his situation. The stairwell leading down from the tower had collapsed. Debris blocked every exit. The building continued to shake, threatening to come down at any moment. His colleagues were gone. The structure was failing, and the young air traffic controller was trapped 4 stories above the ground, with no way down. The
Might be a
same
good thing.
dedication that had saved 148 lives had sealed his fate. But even then, faced with an impossible choice, Agung didn't give up. Meanwhile, high above the devastation, Captain Mafella and his passengers remained completely unaware of the tragedy unfolding below. They flew through clear skies toward their destination, not knowing that their 3-minute head start had been the difference between life and death, not knowing that a young man had sacrificed
Man.
everything to ensure their safety. Airport workers found him lying motionless in the rubble. Blood pooled beneath his broken body. They carefully lifted him, rushing him to the nearest hospital as aftershocks continued to rock the city. The medical facility was overwhelmed. Hundreds of earthquake victims flooded in, many with injuries far less severe than Agung's. But the young controller needed specialized care that the local hospitals simply couldn't provide. Doctors did what they could with limited resources. They stabilized his condition and arranged for a helicopter to transport him to a better-equipped medical facility. All Agung had to do was hold on, fight through the pain, stay conscious long enough for help to arrive. The helicopter was coming. Medical teams were preparing. Everything was in place for his rescue. Time became his enemy. Each passing minute weakened his already fragile condition. The internal bleeding couldn't be stopped with the equipment available. His broken body couldn't endure much more. As hospital staff worked frantically to keep him stable,
Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting emotional here. I feel like some of these images are AI generated. I want to know if this is true. How about you? Let me see if I can look it up real quick. This is from Extreme Trends. They have 4 million subscribers. And it says, Extreme Trends is a place where you find daily heartwarming, love, mysterious, and family stories from around the world. So I'm going to pause this, pop over. We're going to look on the internet, see if we can find something about this. I hit Palu Airport. And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I'm wondering if there's something really about this on the internet. So hold on. Let's take a look together, shall we? Okay, guys. So I just looked it up real quick. I don't know if you can see this up at the top up here. I just put in September 2018 Palu Airport earthquake, last flight out. And it looks like this is a true story. The final flight to take off from Palu Airport for the September 8th, 2018. Sorry, it's cut off right here, but I'll read it. Before the September 28th, 2018 earthquake and subsequent airport closure was a Batik Air flight identified as Batik Air Flight 6321 with 148 people on board. The air traffic controller, Anthonius Gunawan Agung, stayed on the ground to ensure the plane's safe departure despite the developing disaster, sacrificing his life. I just spoiled it, didn't I? Sacrificing his life to help the flight escape the collapsing airport. So it looks like this is a true story. Wow. He jumped from a 4th-floor window to save his life but sustained fatal injuries. The airport was formally closed shortly after the incident due to severe damage to its systems. Now, you may be wondering, okay, if you're in the airline industry, why don't you know about this accident already, especially because I was a flight attendant by 2018? Well, the thing is I have been doing some research about plane crashes recently because of a comment that I received on one of my other videos. And between 2000 and 2025, there were just over 500 commercial accidents around the world. A lot of them didn't end in death. A lot of them had to do with collisions and stuff like that. And this would not be a collision. So, I mean, it's really hard to follow that many all the time. I would have been a flight attendant for already a year at this point, and I didn't hear about it. So I am totally touched by this young ATC person. And that's why I think that ATC controllers are so very important. Like, they just don't get enough credit. in my opinion. Sorry to spoil it, guys. Let's go on and watch the rest of this. I hope I don't cry. What about you? Here we go.
Strength slowly faded away. The helicopter never made it in time. Just hours after his heroic sacrifice, Anthonius Gunawan Agung succumbed to his injuries. The same young man who had stayed at his post to save 148 strangers died alone in a hospital bed. His final act of service complete, he was only 21 years old. Captain Mafella landed safely in Makassar about an hour after his narrow escape from Palu. His passengers disembarked, grateful for a smooth flight, still unaware of the catastrophe they had avoided. Only when Mafella checked his phone did the full scope of the disaster become clear. News reports flooded in about the earthquake and tsunami. Videos showed the complete destruction of Palu Airport. Desperate for information about what had happened after their departure, that's when he learned the truth about the young man who had cleared him for takeoff. The silence on the radio hadn't been due to evacuation or evening prayers. It was because Agung had given his life to ensure their escape. When I found out what happened, I was speechless, Mafella would later say. The mysterious voice that had urged him to leave early suddenly made perfect sense. The urgency he couldn't explain had been their salvation. But it was Agung's unwavering dedication that had turned their escape into reality. News of the air traffic controller's sacrifice spread quickly throughout Indonesia and beyond. His funeral became a national moment of mourning and pride. Soldiers carried his flag-draped coffin through the streets as thousands gathered to pay their respects. The boy who had dreamed of guiding planes safely through the sky had made the ultimate sacrifice to protect the lives entrusted to his care. Captain Mafella has never forgotten the debt he owes to Anthonius Gunawan Agung. He calls him a guardian angel, a national hero who watched over them from the control tower until his final breath. "He is my hero and our national hero," the pilot said. "I could have died as well. He waited for me until I was safe before he jumped." The mysterious voice that prompted Mafella to request early departure remains unexplained. Some call it divine intervention. Others attribute it to a pilot's intuition honed by years of experience. But regardless of its source, that inner warning set in motion a chain of events that saved 148 lives while claiming one. Today, the rebuilt Palu Airport stands as a testament to human resilience and sacrifice. A memorial honors Anthonius Gunawan Agung and the other victims of that terrible day. Flight crews passing through are reminded of the young controller who chose duty over self-preservation, who stayed at his post when every instinct told him to run. The story of Flight 6231 proves that heroes aren't always found in extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes they're ordinary people doing their jobs with extraordinary dedication. Sometimes they're 21-year-old air traffic controllers who refuse to abandon their responsibility, even when the world is literally falling apart around them. In those final moments before the earthquake struck, two men made decisions that would echo through history. A pilot listened to an unexplained voice urging him to leave. His funeral became a national moment of mourning and pride. Soldiers carried his flag-draped coffin through the streets as thousands gathered to pay their respects. The boy who had dreamed of guiding planes safely through the sky had made the ultimate sacrifice to protect lives entrusted to his care. Captain Mafella has never forgotten the debt he owes to Anthonius Gunawan Agung. He calls him a guardian angel, a national hero who watched over them from the control tower until his final breath. "He is my hero and..."
I feel like he's my hero too. You know what I mean? Just such a shame. Such a young man. I don't even know what to say to that. Um, what do you guys think? They said some people thought it was just a pilot's intuition. Is that what you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm just curious what some of the comments say. I read these first couple ones. "This level of integrity is almost never found. Rest in peace to a beautiful, noble soul. He has my utmost respect. May he rest in peace. He did more in his short life than most of us will ever do. What a hero." Yeah, what a hero. So I'm going to leave that here because obviously, as a flight attendant, like, it's hard to explain the connection you feel with people that you've never even met. Like, air traffic controllers have our lives in their hands like every day. And I think what Doge did to them is one of probably the biggest crimes like ever. Even though they only supposedly cut like 1%, supposedly they only cut 400 people. I've seen the impact on that this year in more delayed flights than I've ever seen in 8 years of flying. And Air traffic controllers are one of the unsung heroes of the airports, for sure. Gate agents also have my utmost respect. People don't realize how much they get yelled at by people. They have to do the dirtiest jobs by pulling people off of planes or making sure that drunks don't get on the plane because they could be a potential safety hazard. They have to check for all kinds of stuff. TSA agents. There's an airport that I used to go to. The amount of guns they would find on an annual basis blew my mind. And I believe it was in Ohio, where they used to have this wall of pictures of guns they had pulled off of customers for the past year. And I couldn't believe how many guns they had in Ohio for this particular wall. And then I guess a passenger saw it one day, threw a fit, and now that kind of trophy wall is gone. But there's so many things, like so many unsung heroes at the airports every day that people are doing to try to protect your safety. And I hope you think about that the next time you fly. I hope you think about that young, I hope you think about that young 21-year-old in state. Anyway, thank you for joining me for another Travel Tuesday, and I will see you guys hopefully for Fun Friday where we do something a little less emotional. Right? Jeez. See you in the next one. Ciao.